Alright guys, I want to kind of talk about something real quick here. My background is coming from a private security, executive protection, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that type of environment. As such, the development of my tactics, the techniques that I use to accomplish certain things are based on seeing things through that lens. Understand that wherever you go, everyone is going to have a lens that they see things through. Even in the military, certain tactics and techniques are based on having a team available to you. They're based on being able to go through a door and having 2 or 3 other guys. If an individual happens to grab a hold of your muzzle, I've got 2 or 3 other guys that are able to jump on him as well. And as such, military combatives programs are structured that way. However, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to, I still continue to work in the private sector for government work, and still continue to teach techniques that are based on this. But this was one of the reasons why I wanted to branch out into the civilian side, was to touch on the fact that that a lot of these tactics and techniques are not applicable to the average everyday civilian who is carrying concealed. And just kind of to give you an example, Travis Haley, famous guy, you guys can look him up, a MARSOC Marine, talks about an instance where he was in Iraq and an individual had put an AK in his face. He was specifically talking about the fact that time had slowed down and that he was able to assess the situation, determine that the rifle was on safe. He grabbed the muzzle of the rifle with one hand, with his support hand, grabbed his pistol with his primary hand, and was able to engage the threat and put it down. Now, teaching that technique, and I'm not saying that he is teaching that technique to civilians, but teaching that technique is based on certain assumptions. It's based on the fact that you're going to be walking around in full mission profile with a pistol being carried overtly, and that's just simply not the case. In reality, most of us are going to be wearing jeans and a t-shirt, maybe a jacket or a dress shirt. And if that situation is put into a civilian context, I walk outside of a movie theater and somebody tries to mug me and puts a pistol in my face, and I try and solve that problem using a military tactic, it's not going to pan out too well if I've always practiced clearing my garment with with 2 hands. I clear the garment with my support hand, and I access my pistol with the primary hand. It's just simply not realistic. So a lot of this involves tweaking some of the military methodology to work in a civilian environment, and some of it involves simply just transposing military methods and techniques into the civilian, because a lot of it is transferable, but not everything. As such, getting stuck on this grouping mentality that says, well, so-and-so Spetsnaz Ninja SEAL Team 6 Ranger Force guy said this, that, and the other, therefore that's what I do, without actually applying a certain amount of common sense to your everyday situation, the types of environments that you're going to be in, how you're going to carry, how you carry yourself, what your capabilities are as far as your ability to engage a threat, which is in most cases grossly over exaggerated. That's a problem. And this is where we're at in the combatives environment, is as combatives begins to move from the military structure into the civilian structure, we're gradually, it's gradually becoming the next gun culture. And the problem is that nobody is taking the time to actually look at what works and what doesn't. Tactics are simply being regurgitated, strike to the face, continue to back up, and they continue to violate methodologies with this whole mindset that because the gun can shoot far, I must shoot far. We've shown time and time again on other videos where this just doesn't work. It's completely impractical. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in reality. It doesn't even work in the military environment. It doesn't work in a team setting. It just doesn't work. It's not practical. But because so-and-so is teaching it this way, people are picking it up and then they're regurgitating it, and then the information just continues to perpetuate itself, and bad tactics become the norm. And I was screwing around with some new software, and I made a little video of how we've developed some tactics and stuff. You can use my tactics, you can not use them. Again, my tactics and techniques are based on my experience working in the field, working overseas. They're based on my experiences, and as such, and they're based on my capabilities, but they may not be for everyone. So you're going to have to basically go through and do a personal vulnerability assessment, figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then you may end up having to tweak some of these tactics or techniques to yourself or your own capabilities. I've talked about this before when the subject of maybe older disabled individuals or individuals in a wheelchair, things like this. You're going to have to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and then fine-tune some things. But in order to do that, you have to understand the whys and the wherefores and what it is that your opponent needs to accomplish, and then how I can interject myself into that problem to thwart him from being able to accomplish his objectives. This is one of the reasons why the vast majority of my videos teach concepts and not specific techniques, because the techniques are just ways to accomplish a problem, but there's 100 ways to accomplish a problem. But the concepts are sound and consistent all the way through. So I wanted to kind of put that out there. And this goes back to this age-old question about muzzle up and muzzle down. I hear this argument all the time, and people want to sit there and debate, and they want to get all hot and bothered about it, or they'll debate about calibers and so on and so forth. And people who do that, not to be too blunt, but they're ignorant and they're missing the point. The point is not muzzle up or muzzle down. The point is muzzle in a safe direction. So if I've got guys clearing a floor up above me, I may not be muzzle up. If I'm working on a ship and I've got catwalks and platforms up above me that guys are above me, my teammates are up above me working, I'm not going to be muzzle up. I may be muzzle straight forward. I may be muzzle down. Conversely, if I'm the guy on top, I may not be muzzle down. I may be muzzle up. The objective is muzzle in a safe direction. So I put it up if up is safe. I put it down if down is safe. Don't get hung up on up or down. Figure out why you're doing what you do, and then put the muzzle in a safe direction. Don't get hung up on how I'm going about securing a weapon and get caught up in the minutia. Just secure the weapon and access your tools at the same time. This goes back to a fundamental principle in BJJ, which is attack and defend at the same time. It's one of the things that has really set BJJ apart. So, kind of going off on a little bit of a rant. I know that it's a longer video. I try and keep everything to 5 minutes, but I wanted to kind of put this out there, and hopefully it'll resonate in some people's minds and stop the utter retarded madness of this groupieism, this mindset that so-and-so said, without applying the first bit of thought or not even asking the question why. I'm not saying that this individual is right or that he's wrong, and I'm not picking on anybody who has a different methodology than I do. But what has to be consistent is the concept behind it. If I'm trying to race a guy who already has a gun out, or maybe he's the action and I'm the reaction, and I'm trying to race him to a draw with a two-handed draw and he's within close proximity to me, buddy, I'm going to lose that fight. I will lose that fight every time. I don't care how fast you draw. If you can't draw and factor in a minimum of a quarter-second reaction time, realistically a quarter to a half a second reaction time, if he draws in a conservative 1.5 draw and you're fast at a second, at best, you've accomplished a bad tie. You're both dead. So, you know, the whole mindset is what is completely screwed up. And I see it more and more, and it's just, honestly, it's, well, it is what it is. So this was one of the reasons why I kind of took to the internet, why I teach concepts, why I'm not afraid to share information. I could probably do better if we opened up classes and I only showed techniques on videos and opened up classes where I actually laid out the meat. But I put the meat out on the internet because somebody is going to end up following some retard's tactic and technique just because he's got this, that, and the other in his background, and they're going to end up getting their ass shot. So I wanted to put this out there. You guys take of it what you will, but you know, I hope you utilize your most valuable tool, which is your mind. And I've put several videos up there on concepts and methodology, on strategy, things like this. You know, you can go through basic strategies 1 through 5 and get the mindset that is going into a close combat scenario, and then come up with your own tactic if you don't like mine. That, by all means, you know, let's broaden the scope here. Let's let everybody's input be heard, because the stuff that is being regurgitated out there is complete crap. So, all right, anyway, you guys train hard.